In the fast-escalating diplomatic standoff between Canada and India, tensions have reached a boiling point, particularly after Canadian police accused Indian diplomats of involvement in secret criminal activities, including murder. Now, this came after both countries expelled senior diplomats, raising alarms over the state of their bilateral relations. The Canadian authorities, led by Royal Canadian Mounted Police (RCMP), claim that they have solid proof that individuals working for Indian government were involved in dangerous activities on Canadian soil, including threatening, pressurizing, and harming Sikh Canadians. They also accuse Indian officials of abusing their diplomatic status to gather intelligence for India. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, in a bold move, publicly condemned India, stating that the Indian government has made grave mistakes by allowing its diplomats to intimidate Canadian citizens. He warned that Canada would not tolerate any foreign interference that threatens its people. Now, central to these accusations is killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a prominent Sikh activist and supporter of Khalistan movement, which advocates for an independent Sikh state and has been long-standing point of contention between Canada and India. Now, the movement, which is deeply opposed by India, has been a focal point for increasing tensions. According to Canadian reports, Sikh Indian diplomats were allegedly connected to Nijjar's assassination when Canadian authorities sought India's cooperation in an investigation. India completely refused, citing that the need to protect its diplomat under international diplomatic immunity law. Meanwhile, Canadian Foreign Minister Melanie Joly insisted that RCMP had gathered compelling evidence against these diplomats, but India's unwilling to waive diplomatic immunity has blocked further investigation. After that, India responded fearlessly, dismissing Canada's accusation as politically motivated and without any merit. The Indian government criticized Trudeau, accusing him of constantly displaying hostility towards India and pandering to extremist elements in Canada. Then, in retaliation, India expelled 6 Canadian diplomats and recalls its High Commissioner from Ottawa, signaling its deepened displeasure. Now, from India's standpoint, this diplomatic crisis has been long time coming. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs expressed his disappointment over what it perceives as Canada's leniency towards individuals involved in the Khalistan separatist movement, whom India views as an extremist and terrorist. Meanwhile, India has repeatedly accused Canada of harboring its elements and ignoring its requests for extradition of those who have committed crimes in India. Furthermore, India believes that Trudeau's government, which relies on support from a political party with ties to the Sikh separatist movement, has failed to take meaningful actions to address India's concern. Now, India's concerns are not unfounded. According to Indian officials, Sikh separatist activity had long flourished in Canada, despite India's diplomatic effort to curb them. Over 46 separate leaders based in Canada have been labelled as India's as wanted criminals or terrorists, with Interpol notice issued in some cases. Meanwhile, the Indian government argued that Canada has not only slowed to respond to the request for their extradition, but it has also allowed them to openly engage in activities hostile to India's sovereignty. India also points to the rapid rise in the Canadian Sikh population, which numbers over 770,000 and holds significant political sway, particularly in key regions like British Columbia or Ontario. Now, Indian government, which takes a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism, remains firm that it will not compromise on the matters that are related to national security. From their perspective, the diplomatic expulsion is just one step is what could become a broader disengagement with Canada if Trudeau's government continues to harbor individuals they view as threat. In fact, some analysts believe that India may go further by reviewing trade deals, people-to-people ties, and even student visas that are given to over 320,000 Indian students to study in Canada. Now, in India, Trudeau's accusations are seen as a part of a broader political strategy to rally support domestically by blaming an external country for internal issues. Now, Indian officials argue that Trudeau's government is using India as a scapegoat to cover up Canada's own internal challenges, that is, including the rise of immigration issues, domestic unrest, and strained economy. Now, despite the diplomatic chaos, India remains resolute in its position, emphasizing that the nation has long been a victim of terrorism and will not bow to the political pressure. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his recent address, has reiterated India's global leadership role, reminding the world of a country's growing geopolitical influence. With a rapidly expanding economy that is expected to become the world's third largest economy by 2030, India is increasingly asserted itself on the global stage, signalizing that it will not tolerate what it sees as an unfair treatment by any country, even Canada. In the coming days, both countries are expected to take an additional step, but it is clear that the relationship between India and Canada has hit a historic low. With neither side willing to back down, the situation remains tense. Yet, amidst the accusation and political riotic, one thing is certain for sure. The world is watching closely as two major democracies navigate their most serious diplomatic dispute in years. How this plays out could be far-reaching consequences not just for India and Canada, but the global diplomatic norms as well. Now only time will tell if cooler heads will prevail or if this configuration will set a dangerous precedent for the future of international relations. For more such interesting videos, do follow TimesXP.